I'm working over at the Office of the Principal Legal Advisor. I'm an assistant chief counsel there.
Okay, sorry, thank you. And next, Tenedoro Gonzalez. Tenedoro, he was born and raised in the South Bronx. He fights for his community as a housing attorney with the Tenant Rights Coalition at Bronx Legal Services. As vice president of the Dominican Bar Association, Tenedoro encourages and promotes Dominican leadership and membership within the legal community and works as a mentor to students of color who are pursuing an education in the law. He was also an active member of Metro Law Salon Law School, working with Latinx law students in promoting membership in the legal community, while also serving as the editor-in-chief of the Real Property Law Journal at St. John's University. Say hi, Atenedoro.
Hello.
He's also a John Jay alum, so we'll talk more about that in a bit. Stephanie Rodriguez is also a John Jay alum. She is an attorney advisor in the New York Immigration Court. After law school, she was hired by the Department of Justice through the Attorney General's Honors Program and worked as an attorney advisor in the Miami Immigration Court from 2016 to 2018. 2016, she graduated cum laude from New York Law School. And she graduated from John Jay magna cum laude in 2012. College of Criminal Justice, where she majored in criminal justice and minored in sociology. While in law school, she served as in the executive board of her law school's Moot Court Association and LALSA. So say hi, Stephanie.
Hello, everyone.
So glad I got the introductions out. So now for the John Jay alumni only, could you just tell us a little bit, if it weren't for John Jay, you know, what do you think life would be? Maybe we can start with you, Atenedoro.
Hello. Good question. I will say I'm not terribly sure if I would have taken the path to go to law school if it wasn't for John Jay. I'll be very honest, when I went to college, I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I don't anticipate anyone else should know what they want to do when they first start college, because it's always going to change. But I will say that I did benefit a lot from the Pre-Law Institute at John Jay. I was able to go to a lot of events and I was able to speak to a lot of attorneys. I know when it comes to communities of color, you know, I didn't know any lawyers growing up. No one in my family was a lawyer. No one even family even went to college. So it was very difficult finding someone to talk to about that. And the Pre-Law Institute at John Jay was always very helpful. Fielka Holness, rest in peace, was a big influence into why I decided to go to law school. She was very, very helpful. And I know that Stephanie, you know, we graduated around the same time. So she most likely will also have good things to say about Fielka. But, you know, John Jay really did help cement in, you know, me wanting to go to law school, and gave me the opportunity to speak to other lawyers and speak to other law students, and to get an idea of like what law school would be like.
Okay. And then Stephanie?
Yeah, I second what Atenedoro said. The Pre-Law Institute was instrumental in me applying to law school and even succeeding in law school. I mean, I took free LSAT classes. I worked directly with the late Fielka Holness, who was the director of the Pre-Law Institute. I met attorneys. I spoke to law students. So I had an idea of what I was getting into before going to law school, thanks to John Jay. And I also had a lot of professors who were attorneys as adjunct professors. So, you know, making those connections ahead of time before going to law school was what made me feel most comfortable when I eventually ended at New York Law School, and I made those connections there.
Okay. Now, the next question is, why go to law school? Perhaps we can start with you, Nakari, and then we'll go ask Atenedoro and Stephanie.
Sure. Well, my personal reason for going to law school, I was born and raised in Harlem, and I saw a lot of injustices growing up, and I thought that I just had that vision, like I wanted to make this world a better place, which is why I decided to go to law school. I know people have very individualized reasons as to why they go to law school. That personally was mine. Just, you know, serving as a translator for my mom for all of her documents, being the first person in my family to attend college, and to have any kind of professional degree. So that was like my main motivation.
Okay. How about you, Stephanie? Why go to law school? Why did you go?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Nakari as well, I was the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to go to law school. I served as a translator for my mom. I saw my own family members that dealt with a lot of injustices when it came to like immigration law or criminal law. Initially, I went to law school thinking I wanted to be a public defender. This is why the criminal justice background in sociology comes in. And then I quickly realized that, it wasn't for me, but that's what led me to go to law school. And I really just wanted to make an impact on the legal community and on our community of color in order to serve as a voice for them within the government and outside of the government as well.
Mantenedoro?
I think we all have pretty similar answers tonight for this. I too wanted to work with my community and stay in my community. While I was studying for the LSAT, when I was still trying to figure out if law school was something I wanted to do, there was a really big fire in my building, and me and my family and a lot of my neighbors were displaced for several weeks. It was not fun, but unfortunately, no one really knew what their rights were. My parents definitely didn't know what their rights were. My neighbors didn't know what they could do. We spent about 2 to 3 weeks out. We still paid rent like normal. We went back in with damaged roofs, damaged ceilings. Our belongings were damaged. The conditions were not great, but we stayed there. It wasn't until I went to law school and I started taking like property classes that I realized there was so much that we could have done to protect ourselves, to protect our rights, to make sure that we weren't paying all of that rent money while those conditions were still in place. And those conditions stayed like that until the end of my first year of law school. So we lived with that for about 2 to 3 years. I went to law school because I wanted to stay and work in my community and help my neighbors and help my family. I like Jamel said before, I work at Bronx Legal Services. Born and raised in the Bronx, I refuse to leave my job there because the work that I do is working with my neighbors, my family, the people that I grew up with. And that's why I went to law school.
Beautiful. So the road to law school, what led to your first step? So what made you decide, okay, I'm going to law school, and then what was your first step from there? Maybe, Stephanie, you can answer this. After you make that decision, all right, I'm choosing law school, what's your next step?
So what made me decide to go to law school was that, I always wanted to be an attorney. I always wanted to impact the community and impact the people around me through a legal career. The first step for doing that was first enrolling in John Jay, because I knew they had an amazing pre-law institute, and they had the resources that I needed as a first generation daughter of immigrants that was going to go to law school as a first in her family. So I knew I had to be around people that, was going to gear me in the right direction and give me the resources that I probably couldn't afford at the time. So that's first and foremost. And then, eventually, I think I took a year gap between undergrad and law school where I was studying for the LSAT. The LSAT is super, super, super important. I think a lot of people, myself included, underestimate how important the LSAT score is. Yes, grades matter, experience, internships, connections, all of that matters. But the LSAT score is unfortunately something that's weighed very heavily when applying to law school. So I would say first, building the foundation and the connections in undergrad, studying for your LSAT, getting a good score, getting internships, just putting yourself out there, making sure that you have a good application when it comes to applying for law school. And of course, applying for scholarships as well is super important as well, because it is very expensive as we all know.
Okay. And in preparation for the LSAT, this is for all of you, what would you say was the best advice you received for how to prepare for the LSAT?
The LSAT, in my opinion, is pretty difficult to study for because it's not based on any materials that you have learned beforehand, right? So it's a lot of games, a lot of reading comprehension. So I think the best advice, as simple as it was just to really take a lot of practice exams and really spend a lot of time learning the tricks and the materials in order to, weed out the right answers effectively and fast. It's honestly like a mind over matter game when it comes to the LSAT, and just practice makes perfect. And that's pretty much all I can say on that. And obviously doing it with a course, because I think studying for it alone is extremely difficult, especially when you have no foundation on how it works or how to succeed in an exam like
Yeah, I'll add to that. Part of the reason that I was able to go to law school was because I got a course through John Jay. John Jay had the pre-law, through the Pre-Law Institute, they had like a test prep course during the summer. And, that was the only LSAT prep that I did, but that was something that definitely helped me out. I definitely could not afford to do any kind of prep course. I didn't have the time to do that. So, taking a course definitely is a real big help. I don't recommend self-study. If it works for you, it works for you. But like for me, I definitely could not do self-study. It's very difficult for me to sit down and, sit down for 5 or 6 hours and try to, study on my own. So I definitely recommend like a prep course if you can.
Just to jump in, it's interesting because my experience was complete opposite to that. I hated the courses. I am very good at self-studying and like just applying myself. I'm a good myself learner. I'm not very good at learning at other people's paces, or understanding other people's like tricks and trade. I kind of have to develop my own. So my advice to those who are similarly learning as me, very weird, is I literally just took the exams. As Stephanie said, I would just take exams every day, every single day, to the point that I was still living in Albany because I went to SUNY Albany for undergrad. When I was studying for the LSATs, I would sit on the bus and I would just do the logic games. Like that was my pastime. Like people would play like Angry Bird. I would be, if everyone remembers Angry Bird, I would be practicing these the logic games like no tomorrow. So that would be my advice to you. Just literally sticking to practicing the exams, because the more you're exposing yourself to it, you start to see a pattern in the questions, and you're able to depict like where the question's going, so you're able to anticipate what the answer should be. Then more likely than not, you are correct if you are just applying yourself in that way.
Did any of you work full time while you were studying for the LSAT?
Yeah, I definitely worked full time, and I think that was a bad idea, to be honest. I worked full time as a paralegal at a law firm, and I did take a few weeks off right before the exam to study and to like just dive in. But I wish I would have devoted more time completely to studying for the LSAT.
I'll agree. I'll echo that. I worked part time and I still had to take time off to make sure I gave it enough time. So it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I also did work full time while doing it, which is why I practice on the bus on my way to work. I worked for the New York State Assembly as a legislative aide at the time, and I would just try to divvy up my time, with the commute, and my downtime was not downtime. It was literally take a practice exam time.
Right. And I will say for the students out there, I had a toddler, I was going to school, and I was working, and I barely had time to study for the LSAT, but it is doable. It just takes a lot of work, a lot of repetition and dedication. So let's see. So we're going through the LSAT. So I don't know if any of you know, are there any schools that didn't require the LSAT score? It's one of the questions that was submitted, but
I'm not aware of any. From what I remember, all the ones that I applied for required it. But I also applied in 2013, so I'm sure a lot has changed since then.
Maybe, yeah.
I've heard that some schools are not taking it now, but I know when we were applying, that definitely wasn't the case.
Yeah. So comparing the LSAT to the bar, I know it's a whole nother, everyone's getting post-traumatic stress. If you've taken the bar exam, which is the final exam after you finish law school, you have to take the exam to get your license in the state that you want to be licensed in. So how would you compare LSAT versus bar exam? What's it like? What are the differences?
It's a complete different monster. Like each of them is their own monster on their own. And I'm using the terminology monster, but it's not to like instill fear, because it's doable. Clearly, we are here. We are able to demonstrate that anyone could do this, as long as you apply yourself. But they are different in the way that, as Stephanie was saying, that the LSAT, it's literally something that it's very hard to study for, because it's not something that you learn at all. A lot of the times it's logic games or reading comprehension that is just reading and applying, whereas the bar exam is supposed to test you. in regards to core, in regards to core materials that you learn throughout law school. And it's not an open book exam. It's something that you need to understand and apply throughout. And it's multi-day exam, and it is supposed to just hammer out literally almost everything you learned in law school.
Now, do any of you have any strategies for how you manage the anxiety for taking either of those exams? So say more so the LSAT, because it's more impending for the audience here.
Yeah, I agree with Jamel in that they are different, but I will say before I jump into strategies, I will say the only similarity is that they both require a lot of time, right? A lot of practice exams, a lot of repetition, a lot of just practicing over and over again. And when it comes to stress managing, I mean, for me, what worked out was just, finding time to like work out, release stress in healthy ways. Yes, it's important to study all the time. Yes, it's important to, make sure you're doing the best, but you also need time. You also need breaks, throughout the day. Got to make sure you're eating well, sleeping well, you're talking to people. At the end of the day, it is an exam. It is an important exam, but you have what it takes to do well in it. Same with the bar exam. I mean, like Nakari said, we're all testament to that. And, it is stressful, but you got to find ways to release the stress in healthy ways.
Any other tips?
Yeah, I'll just say, for anyone who worked while studying for the bar exam, oof, I don't know how you were able to do that. Studying for the bar exam is pretty much like a full-time job. Your course goes from like 9 to almost 2 or 3. And then after that, you're supposed to still self-study for 5 or 6 hours. And then that's every single day. It's really stressful. It's really difficult. There's so much anxiety in relation to the bar exam. So I think, Jamila, you might have been working during that, but I don't know, for people who are able to do that, like, props to you, but it's very difficult. And like Stephanie said, it's a lot of time that you're devoting to it. It's like a full-time job pretty much.
Yeah, it's definitely important when you have these critical times, these critical exams, to try and, get support in whatever ways you can to perhaps dedicate, that the day or the week before to this very important event, which are the ELSA exam, the bar exam. And of course, if you decide to go to law school, your law school exams, they're important too. But now let's go back to the law school process. So financing law school, how did you find out about any grants or scholarships available for school?
Actually, I would say back to the Pre-Law Institute. I mean, Bielka was always on top of it. She always told us if there were any scholarships available, if so, how to apply. She taught us to negotiate with schools. So if a school gives you a scholarship and another school gives you less, you could always tell the other school, I really want to go here, but I'm considering this other school, because, negotiate the prices. And, a lot, like I said earlier, a lot of these scholarships are dependent on your LSAT score. So the higher the LSAT score, the more likely are they to give you a full ride or a bigger scholarship. So basically, and a lot of just Google search. You could just Google search scholarships for first generation students, students of color, or any other, characteristics that define who you are. So I just say just be on the lookout for that, and definitely look into the Pre-Law Institute, because they definitely are up to date on any scholarships and any financial help to go to law school.
Now, did any of you work while you were in law school? Full-time or part-time?
So my first year, I didn't work, but then my second and third year, I worked part-time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think most schools have a requirement where for your first year, unless you're doing part-time, you're not allowed to work at all. So if you're a part-time student, then, you're taking evening classes, you are able to work, but your course load is also less.
I did work full-time, and I did go to school part-time my first year, because that was a rule in Seton Hall. But then my second year, I was taking full-time credits while working full-time as well.
Tough, Nakari. That's tough. I think I did work study. I did work study for the law school admissions office. I think in my second or third year. Second year. I want to say second year. So they do have work study too. I was full-time, but it was later on. Like Atenedoro says, your first year, I think you have to get special permission. You're generally not allowed to work if you're going full-time. All right, so you mentioned before, we talked a little bit before about GPAs and versus LSAT. So which one do you think is more important? Does it really matter? What would you say in your experience?
So I'll just have a comment on that. I went to law school straight out of college. I didn't take any breaks in between. So I think both were, heavily factored in. I do have a lot of coworkers, paralegals that I work with that have been applying to law school. And I think at least for them, from the experience they've been getting with like their acceptances and their applications, is GPA is still important, but it's not as important as the LSAT score is once you've been out of college for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'll second what Tenedoro said. I mean, for example, I graduated with a 3.8 GPA, which is pretty high, but my LSAT score was not high at all. I think it was like a 154, 155. And that put me in a category of not applying to the schools that I actually wanted to go to just because of my LSAT score. So I had a really high GPA, but my LSAT score was not the best. So in my experience, the LSAT score is more heavily looked at and influenced when applying to law school. Yes, the GPA does help, but the LSAT score is super, super duper important. So make sure you have a good GPA, a good LSAT score.
I want to echo that, and I just want to add, I don't know if this is still current, but I do remember that you are able to take the LSAT multiple times and they would use your highest score. So I first took the LSAT and I scored, I think it was like a 155, 157. And then I took it again and I scored a 163. So they use the highest score in order to move forward. So for any application, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. And then, so how did you decide after you've done the applications, you've got your GPA, you got your score, you've narrowed down your whole list. How did you decide to choose a school? And how did you decide what to put on that list of applications? Because some schools charge you to apply, so that you can't just always apply everywhere. So how did you go about that?
You could definitely get fee waivers first. If there's a school that you really want to go to, you should definitely reach out to their admissions office. At the time that I was going to law school, I was applying to law school. I really wanted to go to Michigan State University for some reason. And as soon as like a fee waiver came out, I think Vielka had emailed it out. I went right to her office to go grab that. But I think PLI gets fee waivers for students, and if you're very interested, you can go to any of like the law career fairs. I think Latino Justice is still doing. I don't know if they're doing it now this year. But
Did you say what is Latino Justice?
Latino Justice Pearl Def. Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
Well, you gotta let them know.
It's an organization, in New York City, really helps out a lot of Latinos and communities of color. They're very devoted into, bringing in more POC membership into the legal field and also defending a lot of civil rights for low-income New Yorkers and people in general. In the country, they've been very involved with different types of litigation, police brutality, issues with voting, a lot of immigration issues. But they're also very helpful for pre-law students and law students, and at least as the census, yes. They're very involved with helping students of color, and there's a lot of opportunities that you're able to get by being involved with them. Actually, through the PLI, I was able to learn how to finance law school through one of their seminars. They talked about like loans and public interest loan forgiveness and all of this other stuff. So, big props to Latino Justice. I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
We were talking about fee waivers.
Yes. So they do host a law day where they do invite, a ton of law schools to come and talk to students. With I believe it's Pace Law School or New York Law School in the city. It's been a while. But those schools come in, admissions officers come in, and you are able to speak to folks. If you're really interested in the law school, you can get a fee waiver to apply for free.
So then sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
To answer the question, which was, how do you decide which law school once you apply?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I knew I wanted to stay in New York because that's where I wanted to practice. And I figured I would save money if I didn't add like living expenses to all of that. I could just live at home. So that was one determining factor. And then I decided to go to Pace Law School, and I paid the deposit there, which was non-refundable. I think it was like $1,000 at the time. And I was waitlisted at New York Law School. And then just so happened, I think New York Law School ended up accepting me and giving me more money than what Pace did. And at the very last minute, I decided to switch it out and go to New York Law School. So, I mean, I'm a weird example of it because I changed my mind last minute, but I will say that any deposits you pay are usually non-refundable. So make sure you ensure what school you want to go to before you pay any deposits. Make sure you negotiate when it comes to scholarships. I would personally encourage people to go to the school that gives the most scholarship. Obviously, if there's a school that you really want to go to and you're willing to take the risk of going without a scholarship, that's fine too. But law school is very, very expensive. And if you could save some money, that should be a really good, big factor to consider when choosing which school to go to.
I agree. Just to echo, go wherever you get the most money. That's what I did. So I really, really wanted to come back to New York, like New York City. But I also thought it was very important for me to attend a tier 1 school because it was all about tiers at the time. So for me, my highest tier 1 school that I had that kind of fell into my GPA LSAT range was Seton Hall, and I wanted to go there so bad. Luckily, they were the ones that gave me the biggest scholarship. So that's how I decided in regards to that.
Yeah. I would say also, for those of you who do receive scholarships, get a guarantee of, if you can keep that scholarship in your second year. Because what a lot of law schools do is they'll offer out a bunch of money to all the first years, and they'll require you to be in the top 10, 5%, whatever it is, or you lose your scholarship. So you think about it, you go into your first year, the majority of the class has a scholarship, and in their second year, only 10% of those same people will have it. So try to get to negotiate some sort of guarantee that you get to keep it, if you can.
And also, sorry, just to add to that, it's also important to think about the kind of law that you want to practice. Some schools have specialized programs. So I initially wanted to do securities law, not the field that I'm in whatsoever, because then I took the classes and I realized that it was not for me. Nonetheless, I thought that that's what I wanted. And Seton Hall had one of the best securities laws program in the tri-state area, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to attend that law school. So before you make the decision, take into consideration scholarships, but also look up the programs and see if there's any one program that school is known for. And if you're interested in that, that might like tilt you one way or the other.
Now, Stephanie, you mentioned that you did a gap year. Did any of you do gap years as well? And do you think that affected your application? You did, Nakari? Go ahead, Nakari, because I saw you went like this. I don't know if you were just—
No, I was just racing. Like, yeah, I took a gap year as well, but Stephanie, go answer.
Yeah, I definitely took a gap year because I wanted to obviously make sure that I was serious about it. I don't want to jump into it. And I wanted to obviously work, save up, because I always envisioned not working my first year, to just focus on law school and getting the hang of it. So I decided to work, save up, and study for the LSAT. When it comes to taking a gap year, I've never heard of a school looking down upon that. If anything, they actually like it because they see that you're able to do internships, gain experience, and see what it's like out in the real world before applying to law school. I know people that went to law school and it was their second careers. So it's never too late to apply. If you need to take a break, that's fine. I recommend it. I enjoyed having that 1 year break and going in refreshed and ready and more prepared than I would have been if I would have went straight out of undergrad.
Now let's go on to post-law school. So finished law school, took the bar. How much does the law school you attended determine your future job, career, or opportunities? You want to start, Nakari? We want to take
sure. I was waiting for AT to jump in. I think it's important what law school you decide to go to, but I think that the experience that you decide So the work that you put into the law school is going to really define where you end up. So if you take opportunities and take advantage of the opportunities that the law school gives you, such as internships, clinics, moot court, mock trial, any other programs that they have that they might be known for, may not be known for, but you could begin, you could be that trailblazer to make the school known for that. I think that outweighs just the law school itself, because it's the connections that you make. I learned very early on that being a lawyer and succeeding in this career is not just who you are, but it's also who you know. And it's very important to make connections. It's very important to put yourself out there and just get to know people. It might not be the right people in terms of someone who's going to like literally get you a job, but it could be someone that is going to affect your life and just make you prosper as an individual within your own personal life.
All right, I'll jump in. I know there was also a question in the chat about being, recruiters coming into non-tier 1 schools. So, I definitely did not take the corporate path in any sense. I never even once looked at it. I took a business organizations class because I had to, but I knew when I was going to law school that that was not what I was going to do. So I think it depends. Obviously, if you're going to, Cornell or Columbia, those folks aren't exactly hurting for those corporate jobs. If you're going to some of the more middle tier schools or even anything that's outside of tier 1, then, it really does depend on the work that you put into it and who you end up meeting and networking along the way with. Like Nikati said, a lot of it is who you know. Meeting other people from other firms is a nice way to get like a gateway into a firm if there's someone who's higher up. But if you're looking for that corporate work and you're going to a non-tier 1 school, then be very prepared to put in those late night hours, because you really need to do a good job with getting that GPA up there. And I mean like, top 10%, top 5%, especially when it comes to folks of color like us. We don't have, a lot of the same background that some of our white colleagues might have. So it's a lot more difficult making sure that you're putting yourself out there and you're getting your name out there. And it requires a lot of networking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely second quickly what AT said, and I will say that if you're not at a tier 1 school, and at least this is my opinion, my experience with it. If you're not at a tier 1 school, you definitely have to work extra hard and make sure that you are at the top of the class so you can stand out. And that's what happened with me, right? I didn't end up going to a tier 1 school, but I ended up working hard and making sure that I graduated top of the class so that recruiters could still, see me and interview me, even if I wasn't interested in those corporate law positions. So definitely, tier 1 is important, but if that doesn't work out, just work hard and make sure that you stay at the top of the class. And you could always transfer as well. That's another option.
Yeah. And definitely keep an eye out for, when you go to law school, for fellowship programs. There are some programs out there that place students with law firms that are not in tier 1 schools, but super competitive and does require, as mentioned, high grades. So keep that in mind as well. As an attorney, do you ever have to do something that goes against your core beliefs? And how do you deal with that internal struggle? How about, AT, let's go. Go ahead, Atenedoro.
So no, if I ever come into a situation where my ethics are being called into question, I will never do it. As people of color, there are not that many of us in the legal field. A lot of us that are involved in some of the brown bar associations, a lot of us know each other. The last thing I will ever do is jeopardize my law license for anyone, because there's not that many of us out there anyway. Like Roseanne says, unethical behavior will come back to bite you. That is very true. And, that is definitely something I will never do. I'm grateful that the place I work at, my office, my supervisors, no one would ever ask of me to do something that's unethical or that would pull, my law degree in jeopardy. And when I do have situations where I'm with my clients and sometimes they reveal things to me that, maybe is not the best type of behavior. There are places that you can call to get information on, on like ethical kind of situations and issues. I will just say, like, for example, one time when I was in my last year of law school, I was working part-time at a workers' compensation firm, and one of our clients, I was just a law clerk at that time. These are clients for the lawyers, but I was interpreting for an attorney, and the client, advised us that he was not the actual employee at the time of the incident. It was his brother. And, for the last several months, he was, lying about the situation. Um, that was the first time I've ever seen like a situation like that happen. I wasn't sure like what was going to happen, but the attorney that was there, almost immediately, we send the person outside to the other room. We called up all the partners on the firm. We let them know what happened. Right away, they had like a really quick discussion, and, we decided to withdraw from the case. We had apparently also helped them do stuff with Social Security. So we did have to disclose some of that to Social Security because we do have obligations as officers of the court, not lie, especially when it comes to, applications like that. So, I'm thankful that all the places I worked at for the most part have been very ethical and would never put me in a situation where I would have to choose between my license or what someone is telling me to do. And you should never work somewhere where that's the case, because you work very hard for your license. Your license is extremely expensive. My license is cost me a mortgage. So never put your license in jeopardy.
Yeah, I will agree with AT. I will say that I will speak briefly on this because I can't really elaborate, but I would say as an attorney who works for the federal government, sometimes you do things that obviously are not aligned with your moral beliefs all the time, right? Because you are representing the government after all. But I do think that you need good people and people of color in these positions to make the right call, the right call as best as possible, right? Because if we're not in these positions, then we're not able to effectuate change from within. So I think that just, aside from unethical or anything else, when you work as an attorney, as a person of color, sometimes you will have to deal, like if you're a prosecutor or you work for the Department of Justice, you will have to deal with cases that are very sad and are sympathetic. But at the end of the day, you need to do what's within the law and what's best. And of course, you want to make sure that you at least, try to change someone's perspective from within. And that's the most that you can do sometimes.
Scotty, any thoughts?
I have to second literally everything Stephanie said. I was a formal prosecutor, and thankfully I never found myself in a situation where I did not agree with an outcome morally or, ethically agree with an outcome of any of my cases. And now working for the federal government, as Stephanie said, there might be things that are done that are not necessarily aligned with my personal moral desires. But it's, at the end of the day, it is the law. And as an officer of the court, we are here to enforce the law.
Okay, so for all of you now, if you could give one piece of advice, let's say somebody here is your cousin, your best friend, before they go to law school, what would you say to them?
That's tough because I have more than one piece of advice. But I think
all three.
I think the most important piece of advice I give someone is to definitely take your time, think about it. It's a big decision. It's expensive. It's life-changing. It's a career shift. So definitely make sure that you're passionate and that you're interested, because when time gets tough in law school, that's what's gonna keep you going, right? A lot of people go to law school and they end up dropping out because they realize it's not for them. So make sure this is exactly what you want. Do the research, talk to people, talk to any one of us in this panel. We will be happy to talk to you more in depth about it, but definitely make sure it's a well-reasoned decision that you are comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it is a big commitment. 3 years of law school is a lot of work. It is expensive. It is worth it. I would do it all over again. But I always knew I wanted to go to law school, and that's what reminded me on the days that I worked hard, when I was studying for the bar, when I was up late studying, reading, 100 pages a night. That's what keeps you going when you're in law school. So make sure that this is exactly what you want before you apply and before you go to law school.
Yeah, definitely say it's a marathon, and you have to be ready for that stamina because it's a long, long journey. Your thoughts, Nakari? What do you think? One piece of advice.
One is really hard. Just picking one, it's really hard. But I think I don't know. It's so hard. I can't just pick one. But I would say just focus and I think believe in yourself. Maybe if I had to pick one, it's just literally believe in yourself. If this is what you want to do and this is the road that you've chosen to go down, believe in that road. Know that there's light at the end of the tunnel and just keep pushing. You got it.
And I think that one, Akari, is actually one of the best pieces of advice ever, because there is a moment, I think, in everyone's law school life where they hit that they think, am I supposed to be here? Am I like the dumbest one in the class? Everybody has that moment.
Imposter syndrome is real.
Yes, imposter syndrome is a thing.
Yes.
Look it up. We tend to suffer from it. People of color tend to suffer from it. Especially when we're surrounded by, intelligent people, we start to wonder, since we're the first one in our family, generally, did they make a mistake? Did they let me in by accident? And no, you belong there. All right, so Atenedoro, you.
So like my piece of advice would be very similar, I think, to what Stephanie's been saying. And it's, I've gotten this from my experience as I've been talking to a lot of, students that I've been trying to apply to law school and students that are in law school. I'll say really think about what you want to do in life and figure out if a law degree is necessary to do that. I am over $200,000 in debt, and sometimes I wonder if it was worth it just to do what I do. A lot of people can do a lot of different things. I work with a lot of folks in the nonprofit field. And if your answer is, I just want to help my community, maybe a law degree is not the way to go around that. So I would say really think about what you want in the future, because law school is an investment. It's a minimum 3 years of your life. And it's a huge chunk of change that you're going to put yourself in debt with, because unfortunately we can't all get scholarships. And we got to really think about if this is something you want to do. So that's my piece of advice. Try to talk to as many people as you can, and try to, really think about what you want in the future and see if a law degree is what will help you get there.
That's good. Yeah, I remember when I was trying to decide to go to law school, I was trying to speak to different people, just reaching out through, friends of friends of friends, anybody. And there was this one person that was like, let me talk to her. She doesn't have to go. Let me talk to her. Trying to convince me not to go. But I knew in my heart that it's what I wanted. And I knew that something in my brain, if I didn't do it, was always going to bother me. So you do have to believe in yourself, believe what you want, know what you want. If you don't know what you want, take a minute, breathe, take a year, think about it, decide. All right. So now I think it's time for chat questions that popped up.
Yes, I have a list of them.
I'll hand it over to you now.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, all of you. This was excellent. I don't want to go to law school myself, but I've learned a lot, and I know I get a lot of questions from students and family members about law school. So thank you, because you've increased my knowledge base. And just as a side note, Vielka is one of the people responsible for hiring me 8 years ago. So I have a deep love and admiration. And she was one of the first people on campus to welcome me. And she sat me down and had that, we're Latinas talk, and this is what you're going to experience. So I don't want to get emotional, but I miss her too. Just in that vein, I'm going to start backwards, because we did answer a lot of questions about the LSAT and such. But someone asked racism in the workplace. And I'm going to add to that any isms in the workplace. How do you guys deal with it? Because I'm assuming it's going to happen. So what are some ways to kind of make sure you stay healthy in your mind and keep moving forward in spite of those things?
So I haven't dealt with racism or any ism directly, but I will say that one of the hardest parts about working in the legal community is being one of the few minorities, right? So I work in the immigration program. I'm one of the few people there that are the daughter of immigrants, that have any immigrant experience. I think just working in an environment where where it's not personal to most people, and they don't really understand why refugees come to this country or why someone would risk their life to come here. I think that for me is the hardest part about being an attorney. It's not really the work, because you learn it, you went to law school, you're equipped, you're prepared. It's dealing with people and differences of opinion and different backgrounds and different personalities. And obviously being if you work for the federal government or in corporate practice, you're going to be one of the few people of color in your circles, and that's obviously difficult to deal with because not everyone has the same experiences.
Does anyone else want to weigh in?
I agree with that. I actually have not experienced, as similar to Stephanie, any racism or an ism, but there are a lot of people are not aware, but micro and macro aggressions, which is where oftentimes people without noticing, I'll give an example because it's a little hard to describe. So a lot of times I was one of the only Latinas in my office in the Bronx, especially a Latina that is darker with melanin. So oftentimes when I would go to court, I would be in a full suit and people would still assume that I was one of the case aides that was bringing a case over to court instead of thinking that I was the attorney of record. So things like that, it's you deal with it all the time. I actually dealt with it today over the phone. This lady kept on asking me like, hey, is your attorney going to be present? I'm like, ma'am, I am the attorney. It's me, hi. But oftentimes, and you just learn how to deal with it. It's very hard at the beginning. I used to take it very personal. And as they said, imposter syndrome is real and it just contributes to that. But at the end of the day, you know what you can handle. And it's important to just remind yourself that you are worthy and that you are here for a reason. So I just literally have like little meditation talks to myself and then just keep pushing.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to echo everything that Nakari just said right now. My first time appearing in trial for a court, I'm sorry, not for a trial, just in regular court, in housing, I walked in a suit. Nervous because it's my first time going before the judge. I'm fresh out of law school. I'm, not sure what to expect. And they call my client's case up and I go up to the, to speak to opposing counsel, to the judge. And the first thing the judge says to me is your attorney coming? Like, really, bro? I'm in a suit. It's not like, anywhere else is here. Why you assume that I'm the microaggressions, like Nakari said?
Yeah.
Housing court is an extremely toxic environment. I will say that off the bat. It's an old boys club, all old white men who have been dominating that field for many, many, many years. To establish that racism and sexism is there, we filed a complaint about 2 years ago with the Office of Court Administration, signed off by every other nonprofit organization that works in housing court, detailing pages and pages of examples of situations where opposing counsel will call a woman Missy, of opposing counsel coming up to a female attorney and grabbing them by the arm to come to to court, to come to a part. Comments that are made to Latina attorneys about them being spicy or them having a little bit more sass and attitude, that happens a lot. And it's disgusting that you think about this kind of profession that we're all there, we're all supposed to be highly educated, we're all supposed to be there talking about the law, and but this kind of stuff still happens, and it's happening all the time. Because I practice in the nonprofit field, I see how a lot of tenants who do not have attorneys are being treated. It's terrible when you see someone who doesn't speak English and they're being yelled at and berated by opposing counsel just because they can't understand them. We have court interpreters for a reason. Use them. Why are you yelling at someone across the hall, calling them garbage? But that's something that some people think they can get away with because we are people of color and because they think that no one's going to say anything to them. And there have been years where they have been doing this and nobody has said anything to them. So,
I would argue that there's nothing micro about those aggressions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of this is extremely prevalent, and we're trying to call them out when we see them, and as things have been happening, letting court administration know, because there's no reason why all of these judges should be letting these things happen in their court parts. But it's sad and it's unfortunate, but that's what's been going on.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know sometimes some of those stories can be very personal. Going back to the education piece and the academic piece, we got a couple of questions in the chat about how to make your essay for the application stand out above the crowd. Any tips?
From my experience of what I've learned from people that have applied to law school, I think going as personal as possible is the best. And I know it's weird putting your personal business on a paper to send to a law school. But law schools really want to know who you are, right? And why you want to go to law school. That's usually what you write about, what influenced your decision to go to law school. And for a lot of us, especially people of color, it's very personal, right? So you need to definitely write a very personal statement. Make sure it's edited, well written, have people look at it, rewrite it as many times as possible, make sure it's polished, and make sure that it's as personal as possible.
Like, I would say go deep and make somebody cry. If your essay can make somebody cry, you got them. That was my goal. I was like, I'm going to make them cry.
Love that.
That's a great example, Jamal.
I love that. I would agree. Let's see. There's a lot of great. Oh, so someone asked us a couple of times, and it came in. Is there hope for the 2.0 GPA student? What could students potentially do to kind of up their ante when maybe they did not have the GPA that's desirable for law school? Someone also asked, if you go to graduate school first, will they take into consideration your graduate GPA over your undergrad, or will law school ask for both? So how can people overcome this their GPA horror stories?
I'll take a stab at that. I don't know. I know that a lot of law schools look heavily at GPAs. So my advice to those who are lower than the required would be take an extra year. If you are able to afford it and staying another year within your undergrad, I know some undergrads have a 5-year program. I know Albany did have a 5-year program, and that helped. And you would literally just ratemyprofessor.com, find the easiest courses and take those and get your GPA up. I know some people that did that. Another way is the grad school route. If you are able to, I know some schools have like a sister school where they have programs that you could just merge into their graduate program and just bust a little hiney and get your GPA up. Because GPA, unfortunately, it is the metric in which we are measured in order to attend these schools.
Okay, thank you.
I would say worst case scenario, right? If you want to apply and you have a low GPA, just make sure your LSAT score is really strong, right? And make sure, and you could always add a supplement to your application explaining why your GPA is so low, right? Sometimes our GPAs are low, and it's not because it's not an indication of how we did. It's because of life circumstances. You had a death in the family. You had a baby. Life happens. And if we're able to convey that in a separate sheet of paper to a law school, some law schools may still take you. If you have a really high LSAT score, you have experience, you're passionate, and you've explained why your GPA is so low.
Yeah, and just one more thing about that is if they see an upward trend as well, if you say your sophomore year you bombed, but your junior and senior you've been going up, you can explain that.
That's great, thank you. So someone asked the question, she wants to go to school in the East Coast, but wants to practice on the West Coast, or vice versa. The bottom line being the bar exam, how does that work? I know some of you made a face when you talked about the bar exam. That is a crazy exam. Can someone kind of elaborate just a little bit more about universal exam versus state by state, if anybody has any knowledge about that? And I'll ask another question in the same vein. Is there some kind of website that kind of outlines all of this about the bar exam, and even about the idea of tiers? Like, is there a lawschooltier.com where people can actually see what law schools are in what tier and what GPA or what's expected? When I'm dating myself, but when I was coming out of college, there used to be those Barron's books that you would buy in the bookstore or go to the library, and they would have all this information about each school. But those books don't exist anymore because we have the web. So do any of you know what those URLs are, or any more detailed information?
I think one of the websites, I think it's called Top Law Schools. It's like a forum. So Top Law Schools, I think I used to be on that a lot while I was applying to law school. I used to see people used to post their essays on that, their personal statements, to get critiques from random people across the world. I don't know. What was the other question? Oh, the California thing. So every state, has their own exam, and the UBE is a uniform exam. So if you take it in one state, other states might recognize it if you want to apply to be an attorney in more than one state. It doesn't matter if you go to law school in New York and then you decide to go practice in California. You can go and take the bar exam in California, even if you went to law school in New York, or if you went to law school in Michigan, you can go take the bar exam in Florida. What people tell you to worry about or to be careful about is that some states, what they call is they teach to the bar. So what that means is they'll try to teach what they think may be on the bar exam, maybe emphasize a bit more of the topics that are generally tested in their own state's exam. But in general, I feel like the laws are pretty, at the end of the day, when you have to study for the bar, you're pretty much going in with whatever course, is being offered for that state. And that's when you really get the most of the information. So you can generally go to any law school and then take wherever you get a job, take the bar exam for wherever you get a job.
Okay.
So just to piggy off of that, we do have the universal bar exam now. So a lot of states have adopted it. What this means is you can take one bar exam, for example, let's say you take it here in New York, and you can use your score to transfer to another state. You still have to take, a very small exam in that state, depending on what the requirements are. A friend of mine, for example, took the bar exam, the universal bar exam in New York, and got his score. And then he decided he wanted to move back to Massachusetts, where his home state was. He was able to transfer his score over. He did have to take a small exam when he got there, but it is, a lot easier now to transfer between certain states. Other states, like California, they probably will never get into the UBE, at least not anytime soon. So if you do want to go to California and practice law there, prepare for a 3 or 4 day exam. But it is a little bit different now. The bar exam is, the things that you have to study for are a bit different in the sense that, there are schools that used to teach to the bar, but for the schools that are doing universal, for the states that are doing universal, a lot of those schools had to change their model because that doesn't exist anymore. They can't teach to a specific bar anymore. So it really just depends on the state you're going in. But like Jamel said, you can go to school anywhere and take the bar exam anywhere else. One of my colleagues is from the Bronx, went to law school in California, came right back here and took the bar exam in New York. So it's really up to you and what bar course you take when you're studying for the bar exam.
Just very quickly.
Also, I put some of the links in the chat for the UBE as well as for the Above the Law. So if you want to look at the rankings, I sent over a link for that.
Thank you so much. Just very quickly back to the LSAT. Is there an ideal score or does it vary from law school to law school?
Varies from law school to law school. I think most people will tell you should get a 160 something and above, 165 and above or so.
Yeah, I would agree with Jamal.
Okay.
I will say one tidbit to go back to the prior question. If you work for the federal government, you just need to be barred in one state, doesn't matter which state. So if you're one of those people that wants to move around, it's undecided on where you want to live, apply to the federal government, you just need one state and that is all. I worked, when I graduated law school, for 2 years in Florida and I was barred in New York.
Okay.
So that's a good benefit.
Great. So we're coming close to the end of the panel. There are some questions in the chat. I'm sorry if you got here a little late, but those questions were asked and answered. We are recording this, so this will be up on the John Jay College YouTube channel, and Alumni Relations has its own playlist, if I'm getting all the jargon correct. So Alumni Relations has its own playlist, and this will be in there. For the panelists, I usually send out, just a thank you note to everyone who attended, and folks are asking if I can share your contact information. So I will ask you all if you can let me know via email what email address you'd like me to share and or a social media handle that I can share with the people on this call, because some of them are very anxious to get to know you, maybe ask you some further questions and further details. This was, excellent. I know I'm proud to be a Dominicana right now. I always am, but this is another level to see everything that you all are doing. And, we are part of that American dream. And I congratulate all of you for the success and the hard work. I think that's something that is a theme of this conversation. None of you said anything about any of this being easy. Studying for the LSAT hard, working while you're in law school hard, working while you're studying for the LSAT hard, working during the gap year hard, the bar exam hard. So, you know, dealing with the office and whatever desired path you took within the law hard. You know, none of it is easy, but you all seem really happy with your profession. So I am happy for you on that. Are there any final words? I'll ask that of all of you. Not so much advice, but maybe just any closing remarks, including Jamel, who was our wonderful moderator, that you might have for our students who have spent the hour with us.
I would say one thing, and it is a little bit of advice, which is something that I tell everybody. And it's like, if you were my daughter, I would tell you this. It's always ask for help. Don't feel like you need to do it alone. That's what, you know, organizations like the Dominican Bar Association, that's what we're here for. We're here to help, you know, pass the torch on. And we're sometimes afraid to ask for help because we want to prove that we can do it ourselves. But they're getting all the help. They're asking every network they can for help. So you need to do it too. Don't feel self-conscious about asking for help. There are lots and lots of people that want to help you. So that's what I would say.
I'll just reiterate what Nakari said earlier. It's really just believe in yourself. I mean, it's possible. You have what it takes. It doesn't matter if you're the only person of color in your class. It doesn't matter if you're the first in your family. Like we're all testament to that, right? And I think a lot of the times we stop ourselves from opportunities because we think we're not capable, we're not worthy, and you are. So definitely just believe in yourself. Whether or not you go to law school, whether you go to grad school, whatever it is that you want to do, just put yourself out there. You never know what would happen if you just believe in yourself and have the confidence that you need to just move forward.
I'll say, you know, we were all in your positions once upon a time. So once you do get out there, you do go to law school, you do graduate, you do start working, and, you know, you're in your wonderful career. Don't forget to come back. You know, we're always here lighting the way for everyone else coming after us. You know, a lot of us don't have family members or friends that, you know, were lawyers or that could give us advice. So your perspective and, you know, anything that you can give back, you know, it would be greatly appreciated to the next generation coming after you.
Okay. Well, Nakari, do you want to say some final words?
I agree with everything everyone said.
Thank you. So I want to again thank you, gracias, mil gracias a todos nuestras panelistas, to all of our wonderful panelists. Again, we thank you, and the advice was fantastic. I have put in the chat, we have future career-related panels like this one coming up, and I put the calendar of events. I will be sending everyone an email in the next 24 hours with whatever contact information our panelists have provided me with, should you want to follow them on Instagram. Jamel, what is the Dominican Bar Association handle on Instagram and Twitter? We could at least get them started with that.
Yeah,
I put a link in the chat as well.
Okay, thanks, Nakari. Dominican Bar Assos.
Right, I have to search for them, you know, under the search bar, but they're on social media. You're going to see them. They have other events that come up. And I want to thank you for spending a summer evening with us. And we look forward to seeing all of you again. And I look forward to meeting our panelists in person one day, si Dios quiere. So everyone, please stay well. Please stay safe. On behalf of John Jay College, thank you for being here. And we wish you so much success as the semester gets underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Thank you for having
Good
us.
luck. Bye.